Welcome back. This is part four, the final part on the series on mind control. Well, in the last series, what we did is we talked about what I think is the most important part of it was MK Ultra, how they can literally erase a person's personality and their memories and replace it with a completely false set of beliefs, get them to do something heinous to kill somebody or create espionage, and then forget it and just go on and live their normal life, assuming they don't get arrested and executed. But basically, then we close with Operation Gladio, where we talked about how they've had an ongoing program for ever since World War II to make sure that there was constant war, constant conflict, constant division between every nation, every race, every creed, every color, keeping us absolutely at each other's throats. That's where we left the last segment. Let's go on to the next segment here, and we're going to talk about something right out of the Bible. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And so they're doing everything they can to divide us, divide husbands and wives, divide people on Christian basis, Christian versus Muslim, divide you based on your economic standard, divide you based on the false belief that we have a uniparty that is basically a Republican and a Democratic party that stand for very different things. No, we have a uniparty controlled by the global financial elite, and we have people that are playing roles, and we think that the Republican Party is more on the side of freedom and justice, but there's enough rhinos in there that every single decision that gets made that's of any consequence always falls so that it's in the best interest of the global financial elite and against the interest of the general public. So let's go on down and we'll break these down. And here's the uniparty. Basically, we're going to find out right now. Here's what's happening. It has to do with the trigger that's going to open up the people's eyes. And basically, that God said to me when I had my near-death experience in '68, the truth will open your eyes and set the people free. And what we're about to find out is all the scandals that relate to election theft. And when we find that out, we're going to find out that most of the people that we think were elected to political positions were selected, groomed, financed, and placed in position to represent the interest of the global financial elite, not the interest of the American people. And we're going to find out about why Trump is truly in Venezuela and the fact that what they did caused the theft of 72 elections in 72 different countries. And when we find out what's been done, the illusion of the Democrats and Republicans is going to go away, and we're going to find out that most of our politicians are going to be taken out of office. Most of the sitting judges are going to be removed. Many of the people in the banking industry, probably most, are going to be taken down, and the banks are going to fall like you can't believe. Corporations are going to go under. Think about the news media and how that, when we find out what they've done, we're going to come against them. And what happens to them when the stock market crash is going to be horrendous. And then think about when we truly understand what the pharmaceutical companies have done to us, what's going to happen with them. And then we find out with what the military industrial complex has done. I mean, we're going to strip these corporations of their power like you can't believe. Just to give you a little credence to that, just go back just a few weeks. And a story that was in the headlines was about the LGTB stuff, and what happened basically is the people who control the money, the world runs on credit. We're saying to corporations, if you don't promote DEI and LGBT, then we're not going to give you any credit. And so Anheuser-Busch went ahead and put a picture of a transvestite on their beer can, and they lost $27 billion. Target did the same thing and lost over $12 billion. The American people, when fully awake, are going to come against these institutions that have controlled us and strip them of their money. And he who controls money controls the world. And all of a sudden, we're going to have a financial collapse like no financial collapse we've ever had, because it's going to completely take the control away from the global financial elite by stripping them of their money, because he who controls money controls the world. And with their money, they can buy every single solitary sphere of influence and control us and completely and utterly and absolutely brainwash us, because in the absence of any truth, a lie becomes the truth. Let's go on down to the next slide. And I first did this show, a whole show on this one slide, over a year and a half ago. And what it does, history is very important. God told me, when I send you out, everything you do is based on two things. Well, three things. It's based on the Bible. It's based on, which is 70% history. It's based on particularly American history, and then a whole genre of other things that God taught me through my work efforts and through the reading. But we're going to start with McKinley. That's where the global financial elite first found out, if we take our money, our power, and our influence, we can buy a president. And if we can buy a president, we can buy a governor, we can buy a congressman, a senator, a banker, a CEO, we can buy anything. So I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I'll just give you a high level overview. McKinley was for big business. His opponent in the election was against big business. And so Rockefeller got together, and JP Morgan and Carnegie, three most powerful men in the country, said, we got to get McKinley elected. And they did. And then that takes us on down this lineage of traders. Wilson came in and says, under my presidency, there will be never again a central bank. Within a year, financed by JP Morgan, we had a central bank. And then Roosevelt comes in and he wants to get us into the war. And basically his advisor said, the one thing that we got to do is make sure that there's no question that Japan was the aggressor. And so that's why they orchestrated the events, the false flag events called Pearl Harbor. And then you've got Johnson, who comes in, and Kennedy was coming against the global financial elite in some very powerful ways. And so this man, I think, when the truth comes out, we'll find out, along with the CIA, along with the mafia, along with the global financial elite, and along with Johnson, orchestrated the assassination of Kennedy. Then you go down to Nixon, and Nixon was, of course, removed because he authorized the break-in of an election office from his against his opponent. But what he's probably most known for is he took America out from under the gold standard in 1971, leading us to the decline in the value of the dollar, where today the dollar is worth about 3 cents. And then you get this smiling Jimmy Carter. Do your homework. He's associated with the global financial elite with deep, deep roots. And he was assigned to basically create a situation of stagflation, where our interest rates were 18 to 21%. Inflation was running 18 to 21%. The entire American economy was stagnated. At the same time, he was to basically orchestrate opening up. It passed from him and on to a couple of other presidents. Clinton was the key one, and basically they opened up trade with China to bleed America out and to basically orchestrate NAFTA, the greatest intentionally losing trade agreement in the history. Then we go to Bush. There's several things he did, but the one he's most noted for is his involvement in 9/11 and taking us into the war. And then we go to Obama, the one that I believe is the most evil of all, that and maybe the Clintons, but basically every one of these men were found. They were groomed. Well, McKinley actually didn't know what they were doing. He was kind of, as much as anything, a victim. But basically, these men were all selected. They were financed. They were groomed. They were placed in their positions because they had agreed to represent the interests of the global financial elite, not that of the American people. And you see over to the left, you got Biden. He's the same situation. So the only one of all the people you see there that has represented the interest of the United States of America is the one that they say everything bad about, and that's Donald J. Trump. Let's go on down to the next slide. And this is what we need to understand. We need to go back to our foundation and understand that they tell us we're a democracy, but our founding fathers called democracy mobocracy. And I'm just going to read this. A democracy is this. It's a government based on the majority rule, where those least willing are able to work, demand handouts from the government that intentionally doles out handouts as a form of of enslavement. But what we were founded as is a republic. Now, we lost that republic in 1871, which is a whole deep, deep dive in itself we're not going to get into. But a republic is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it has certain requirements. You have to be able to read. You have to be educated. That's why our founders founded Harvard. You have to be moral. That's why the pilgrims came here with their Bibles in hand. You have to be informed. That's why we had pamphleteers back when we were fighting the Revolutionary War that told us the truth. We had pastors who belonged to something called the Black Robe Regiment who went out and fought in the Revolutionary War, not in major engagements, but they did something critical, without which we probably would have lost the war. They cut off the British supply lines. So America, make no mistake, is not a democracy. Democracy is just a form of communism. America is a republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And when we come out of this, we're going to get back our Constitution. We're going to get back our republic. We're going to get back representation that represents we the people, not the slave masters that control us today. That's what's on the horizon. And now with this next slide, I need to go back and I need to show you the system that we're under. It's democracy. It's communism. And here are the tenets of communism. And you have to check every one of those boxes. And then you absolutely control the people. And then in 1934, we declared bankruptcy. And what happened is, it might have been 1933, 94, right on the cusp. Anyway, basically, we were basically taken out of being a republic and became a democracy, and we moved into communism. And here's what they did. They imposed a central bank on us, the third central bank. So that means I think it was Stalin or Lyndon who said, an imposition of a central bank is 90% of communizing the nation. Then we had to have what? They have to control our thinking, right? So they got control of the educational system, and then they got control of our labor. So they can do what? So they can tax our labor, which is unconstitutional, and government control of transportation and communication. So they can continue to brainwash us. Government control of agriculture, production, and food processing. Translated, control of all the necessities of life. And then they had to get control so they could confiscate our private property, the essential reason we came here, so we could own land. So they changed our real estate structure to fee simple, and all of a sudden there were take rights, and every one of the things you see there have been inflicted on the American people to subjugate us, to turn us without us even realizing into a communist dictatorship. Let's go on down, and now we're going to transition into some things that we need you to do. We need the American people to be informed and to stand up and to call Congress and call Senator and call the president and get involved in action groups and demand that all these things that are on here happen. And Donald Trump, believe me, is behind executing every one of these things. Get out from under the global central bank. He's doing it. It may even be done, and they just haven't told us. Get out from under the UN. He just went to the UN and gave them a pretty scathing indictment. So basically, he's threatening, hey, don't be surprised if at some point in time the U.S. is no longer involved in the UN, because I know what they're there for. They're a global entity that is put in power in order to control the entire world. Look who resides under the UN. The World Health Organization, who was responsible for COVID, the World Trade Organization, who was responsible for the growth of China, the NATO, which is pushing to keep that war in Russia and Ukraine going, the World Bank, the IMF, US Aid. All these entities that are under the UN are nefarious global entities that are against the interest of all the people in the world. And the corporation and the Vatican and the City of London and Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia are all our enemies. We need to understand that and strip them of their power. And we need to understand you don't get in position of being the head of a bank or the head of a Fortune 100 company unless you've sold out to the global financial elite. And they own every major corporation in the world. They don't have to buy them outright. They start like in 29 and the stocks fell 90%. And all they had to do is they basically came in and bought controlling interest in literally every corporation in the country. And so Lincoln it was who said, I fear for our great nation because I see the time when the influence of the banks merges with the influence of the corporations, and dire times will come upon the people of the United States of America. And then we need to understand some of the institutions that they use to control us. The Council on Foreign Relations is on record in their own handbook page 524, I think, saying that we stand for a one world government. We stand for open borders, everything that is against human rights. And then the Trilateral Commission stands for essentially the same thing. And then here's what I need you to know that we've done in other shows. The vast majority of all the people that are in Washington, the congressmen, the senators, the representatives, everybody there, they belong to one or the other or both of these institutions that are dedicated to the demise of the freedom of the American people. And the World Economic Forum, which is coming more and more into play, Davos, the Illuminati, which goes back all the way to the foundation, back to the fifth century, when what happened was that the black pope, there's more than one pope, there's a white pope and a black pope, issued a letter giving instructions that turned into the foundation, the forming of the Illuminati. And it said, put your people in all of the places of power and put them into commerce so that you can control the people. Put them in politics so you control them. Make them lawyers and make sure they're in politicians. Make them doctors so you can poison and kill people. On and on it goes, all the way back to the 5th century, orchestrating these institutions that today utterly, completely, and absolutely control us and must be taken down if we're going to get back our freedom. Let's go to the next slide. We're getting close to being done, folks. So who are the puppet masters? Here it is. We're narrowing it down. The figureheads that we might see today that we recognize as ahead of some of those organizations that are basically funneling money that's used to control us. George Soros, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg. There's a whole bunch more that I'm sure you're aware of. We have to make them accountable for what they've done. And the corporatocracy, that's what Lincoln was warning us about. That's the banks merging with the corporations, merging with the politicians to utterly, completely, and absolutely control us. And then the globalist organizations, I mentioned a minute ago, the UN, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, USAID, NATO, the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the Council on Foreign Relations, the World Economic Forum, all enemies of we the people. And it's insurrection groups, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Green movements, the Sierra Club, etc., all funded and used to control and enslave mankind. And then basically within that, there's a group of people that I feel sorry for. They're bleeding hearts. They're liberal Democrats who really, truly have a heart for people, and they don't understand that they're being used and controlled and manipulated because they've been brainwashed. Let's go on down, and we're going to sum up. We're going to go back to where we started, and I encourage you, if you really want to get deep into this, go watch this. It's a very, very good little documentary that shows you the 10 things. I didn't cover everything because if I did, we'd be here till tomorrow morning. But you can take the initiative and go listen to this, and they'll take you on an unbelievable journey as to how and why we have been totally, completely, and absolutely scripted. And we have to have the truth come out so that we can set free and we can take our nation back. And this is, next slide is where we go when we get back. We go back to the foundation that God gave us, back to the core values that made America great in the first place, back to the Bible, to the central question that Christ was asked, Master, what is the most important scripture in the Bible? To love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul. And the second is unto that, and that is to love thy neighbor as thyself. And so I have come to realize in my time on this planet that if I harm another, I ultimately harm myself. The whole world needs to understand this. So the list to the left side, that's just a whole bunch of attributes that you might want to take a look at and say, am I living that attribute? Am I walking in loyalty? Am I walking in love? Am I walking in kindness? Am I walking in truth? I mean, if you're not, then you need to put some focus on that. And in my new book that's coming out, God orchestrated me to something similar to this, where he gave me a definition for what he called the 12 great virtues. And I have structured my entire life around incorporating those things into my life. And if you do the same kind of a thing here, basically you'll find that you will always, always choose to look at whatever you're going to do based from the lens of what will it do to the other person? What will the outcome be? Will I be harming that person, or will I be helping that person? And indirectly, will I be harming or helping myself? And when we realize that realization, spirituality is going to break out around the world. The reset that God wants is going to come into play. We're going to take the money away from the global financial elite. We're going to put it in the hands of people who will use that money for good. And there is going to be a transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous. And so I'm working on maybe the most important set of information I'll ever come across. God gave me a massive download the other day, and it's about the coming financial collapse, which is going to be different than any collapse you've seen in the past. They've been singular events. Maybe it was a collapse that was triggered by the stock market or by real estate or by a bond market collapse or by a dot-com collapse or whatever. But now we're going to have the everything collapse, where basically the whole system has to come down so that we take the power away from the global elite. So when this collapse that's coming, the real estate market's going to collapse, the housing market's going to collapse, the bond market's going to collapse, and that's going to take power away from them. It's going to be catastrophic, but it's not going to be intentionally dragged out like the other collapses. It's going to be a quick rebound, and when it comes back, we're going to have a completely new financial system. And here's what I've been praying for to God. I said, God, I'll tell this story, but I fought him for 3 weeks. He kept telling me, I want you to do a series on the financial collapse. And I said, they won't believe me. They needed a billionaire to tell that story. They need at least a financial advisor. And he says, no, I've prepared you. I never call anyone that I don't prepare. He says, use your knowledge of history. So I've gone back, and over the years I've studied, and I just rehashed everything I knew. I went all the way back, and I started with the Dutch. They were at one point the global financial elite of the world, and they were the currency that was the principal currency. And then I went to the Spanish and the British and to America, and now the potential transfer to China, which isn't going to happen. And I looked at all the collapses and all the nuances, and I stopped and I said, God, you got to help me. I have to have something simple, something easy for people to understand, and I have to have a strategy where they can work their way through what's going to be the most catastrophic financial collapse in the world and not be devastated like so many people have been in these other collapses. This collapse is different than any we've ever had. All the other collapses were simply doing one thing. They let the financial system get so deep in debt that it had to collapse. And as soon as they collapsed it, they just started it over and started the same shenanigans all over again. So what I'm going to do, what God has been giving me in downloads for the last 6 weeks, is a strategy that I'm going to release in the next few weeks that's going to tell you where you put your money, what you do, how you control your assets, so that whether this collapse that's coming is in hyperinflation collapse like happened in the Weimar Republic and other countries where basically he who had money lost everything that he had. If you had your assets in cash, you lost everything you had. And then there's other collapses where, oh my goodness, like in 29, if you have money, cash is king, because as the stock market fell 90%, you could go out and buy stocks. Well, I said, but this thing is going to be so volatile. It's so much bigger than anything we've ever had. I don't know how people are going to navigate it. And so I'm going to hold this back for a while, and I may not do this show for a couple of weeks. It's huge. I'm working as hard as I can on it, but I'm going to show you that God showed me a strategy where I don't care if it's an inflationary or deflationary collapse. God has got a strategy where each and every one of us, if we'll get informed and if we'll do the things that are being shown to us by one Donald J. Trump, he's laid all his cards on the table. We just haven't been paying attention. And so I'm going to do a show for you, a series that's going to show you how Donald Trump and the White Hats have been orchestrating the events relevant to this collapse. And here's where it differs from any collapse that ever happened. Like I said before, and all those other collapses, all they want to do is collapses and then start the same shenanigans over again. Donald Trump is going to oversee a soft financial collapse of the United States based on some very specific things that he's doing. And then he is going to grow America back into economic stability and make us, as he promised, great again, greater than we've ever been. And so we need to understand what's happening on both sides of that equation, and then we'll know how to navigate what's coming. So stay with us. As soon as I get it all put together, we'll be doing it, and it's urgent. God is telling me that basically things are going to heat up, because what we're seeing is more and more releases of all the election fraud. And when that's finally completely triggered, everything is going to fall apart. And we're going to be in the midst of this crash. So I'm working as hard as I can to get this done. Please press that like and subscribe button, so when this very important story comes out, you don't miss it. And by the way, it's going to parallel very closely the release of my next book. So this book was called Liberty Crusade, The Fight to Save the Free World. And the next book is Liberty Crusade, Restored Republic, because we'll be going in to the next phase where we basically have gotten control from the global financial elite, and we have to build back America based on the foundations of what made it great in the first place. All of that, everything you need to know, is in these two books. What made America great, how we've lost it, and most importantly, how we're going to get it back and keep it. My journey is a 57-year journey ordained by God for this very moment in time, so that we can have a massive number of people who will make the transition through this financial collapse with minimal hardship on them. And we'll come back and we'll utterly destroy the global financial elite's control, and we'll get back our republic. We'll get back we'll get out from under the corporation, and we will once again be a republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And I believe Trump has made every indication that we're going to have a new Declaration of Independence, declaring Declaration of Independence not from Britain, but from the global financial elite, from the City of London, from the Vatican, and from what happens in Washington, D.C. We're going to get our government back, and our Constitution, that was one beautiful, short little document written on parchment, has now ballooned into a control mechanism that's over 2,700 pages. We're going to get back our original Constitution, and we're probably going to have a few amendments made, because a lot's changed in the last 250 years. But my prediction is, by the time we have the 250th year celebration of America, the collapse will have occurred, and the principal part of the restoration will have happened, and the American people will be free. But it's going to take you, each and every one of you out there, to stop being divided, stop fighting amongst yourself, to stand as exactly what God wants: one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the only way we do that is we find out the truth. Please buy these books. Please become a part of the group of people that stand up, informed, and help bring back and restore morality to the world and economic stability to the world, and end the division that has for so long kept us all in slavery. Be blessed. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll see you soon.